one of the ambitions of the.
I can say something now.
Please.
I've collected my thoughts.
Thank God.
I mean, The Last Duel is about chivalry and gender, and what one thinks chivalry is in this movie especially is vanity and pride and jealousy and revenge. And it's really not about protecting the woman at all. It's about winning a duel and saving face. And the last duel is about gender because the females have no identity, no agency, no rights. They're property of their fathers, then they're property of their husbands who are old enough to be their fathers. So it says a lot about, the disparity in gender. There's no gender equality.
That's particularly kind of insidious because the chivalric code wrapped itself in the veil of, being protective of women and, putting them in this sort of ostensibly a pedestal, a sort of like they're, my daughter just read Tale of Two Cities, and we were talking about it, and she said, well, Dickens employs the classic device where he, frames the women only as these, pure symbols of nature, or, like, kind of like she's very tuned into this, the hypocrisy inherent in this. Like, you're on the one hand, you're saying, oh, well, these women are sort of elevated, they're better than us, which allows the men to feel good about the way they're treating them, when in fact, they're ignoring and undermining the very basic humanity.
Our kids are not that smart.
Leading into, when employing the different perspectives, were you concerned about the film becoming a he said, she said scenario?
In employing the different perspectives, we were very careful, and there was quite a bit of discussion around not ever turning this into a he said, she said, or a both sidesism type of. We were very clear. Ridley was very clear, and the writing team was very clear about this. The idea that everyone who sees this movie and everyone who made this movie understands that she is telling the truth. The only person who doesn't is Adam Driver's character, Jacques Legris. And to us, it was a much more interesting thing to study how somebody could do something so horrible and not realize it because of his acculturation. Salute.
Thank you.
Because of his acculturation, because of his experience and his understanding of the world, and because of the system and the culture he lived in, and because of all of the institutions validating his experience and his belief and telling him that he could do no wrong, that he could actually do something so heinous and wrong and not even understand that he'd done it. And that was a much more interesting thing to explore than a bad mustache twisting evil person sneaking in the window and willfully committing an act that they knew was wrong, because that allows the audience to go, oh, that's a bad person, they're nothing like me. Whereas what we hope is that people come out, and particularly with Ben and I talked a lot about men watching this movie and reflecting on their own behavior and saying, well, I wonder if there are times where I didn't really see what was going on. Obviously, hopefully not to this degree, but I didn't see people in for who they really were. I didn't. We're all prisoners of our subjective experience, but maybe hopefully the movie leads to interesting discussions or reflections.
And if anybody if anybody thinks The Last Duel is a he said, she said movie, they are not looking at it carefully.
Yeah, I mean, it was so clear to us that it actually didn't even occur to us that someone might interpret it that way until we consulted with Rain and the Gina Davis Institute and people who said, are you mindful of this? And we thought, oh my gosh, of course. This is not, the idea is not to explore like, well, it could be, she could be telling the truth, she could not, and hey, question, people's realities and integrity but rather to say, it's to really examine how this profound narcissism that Matt's talking about, rooted in this case in gender and this culture and the world that was created, as well as a self-centeredness of this character, can lead one to experience, an event so differently than someone else. And is that two people can have this different experience of the same event, and yet there can only be one truth.
Yes, well said.